So as we know, we've been talking about this, women's economic empowerment really is a combination of access to skills, resources, and institutions, along with the power, the self-agency to actually manifest. And the combination of this access to resources and agency is critical to ensuring that women in our communities can be economically empowered. Some of the strategies that can make a difference in this regard, and we are already seeing some examples of those in the Nigeria context, include legal reforms, the strengthening of gender-responsive social protection and public service delivery, quotas for women's representation, this is extremely important, and support for women's movements at all levels. So the session that we're about to have will look at the ways, some of the innovative solutions and evidence-backed solutions that are currently being implemented across government, the private sector, and elsewhere to ensure women's economic empowerment. Now, as the country moves towards sustainable and inclusive development and government moves towards trying to reach its goal of lifting 100 million people out of poverty by 2030, building the human capital of women and girls and ensuring that they're economically empowered and they have access to economic opportunities and are able to join and participate in the labor force is absolutely critical. This is not a nice to have, it is an integral element of any progressive economic strategy. In fact, according to recent data from the Nigeria General Household, there continue to be large disparities between the incomes of men and women across different sectors, including agriculture, self-employment, and otherwise. And some of the factors that exacerbate these are things that many of us know in this room: lack of access to resources, lack of access to capital, wage disparity, and of course, issues around the unpaid care economy. So for this panel, we're going to focus on a number of different areas represented in our group: economic empowerment generally, issues of how we overcome stereotypes, how do we leverage our traditional rulers, our communities to address issues around women's empowerment, how are we exploring innovative solutions to ensure financial literacy and access to capital, and also how are we understanding this intersection between gender and economic power in all its dimensions, whether it's socioeconomical status, your rural or urban location, your ethnic background, etc. How does this intersection manifest to ensure to prevent women from being economically empowered, and how can we broker solutions that address these issues? Ultimately, a core theme that runs across here and that's critical is that we need to ensure that women have the agency and the autonomy to take the lead and to be empowered. So access without that agency and autonomy is not enough. So we'll be delving into the ways in which our speakers are addressing that particular nexus. And so several of the things that we hope to come out of this, as I said earlier, is that we want to explore these innovative approaches. We want to look at potential areas of collaborative strategy. What can we take forward based on the examples that are set before us? How can we deepen partnership to ensure collective success? And how can we ensure and support government in ensuring that there are focused policies that can be adapted for future policy action that are integrated and really have at their center women's empowerment, not just in women's affairs, but across all sectors, across fiscal policy, across critical sectors such as agriculture, health, education, and really in innovative ways that unlock our full potential. So with that, I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel. I will say that the Honorable Minister of State, Labor and Employment is currently detained at another high-level event. She will be joining us as soon as she's able to make it. So we'll proceed. She's given us the go-ahead to proceed without her. We also have Alhaji Mustafa Abida Sarakin Dawakin Nupe was not able to join us. He is on an assignment that has been given to him by the governor of his state, and he sends his apologies and his regards. We have joining us virtually from Washington, D.C., Ms. Hannah Brixey, who is the Global Director of Gender at the World Bank. We have in the room with us Mrs. Hadiza Ambursa. I'd like to call you up. Mrs. Ambursa is the Executive Director, Commercial Banking for Access Bank. You are welcome. We also have joining us His Royal Highness Eze Ariwodu Wogu, past chairman of the Aba North Traditional Ruling Council. Your Excellency, you are most welcome. Please, a round of applause. So we will start with Mrs. Hadiza Ambursa, since the Honorable Minister is not yet with us. So we know that innovating finance is highlighted as one of the core areas that could help close gender gaps, especially in terms of performance between male and female entrepreneurs. How is Access Bank working to increase women's access to finance? And what types of innovative financing solutions is it developing and offering to women?
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. At Access Bank, we've always thought that the women's sector is very important. As far back as 20 years ago, actually, we started talking about how we could intervene and help the women in the country generally. So we went through a lot of different permutations and calculations, because really the cost of financing in Nigeria, as we all know, is really expensive. Subsequently, we had several conversations with organizations like the IFC, who actually gave us our first intervention funding for women. We had a big launch in, I think it was 2006. Then it was about $15 million, which we were able to convert and lend to women at a lower rate than is available generally in the market. And following that, we've done several of these with different development finance institutions across the world. I would say that in the last 17 years, we've availed maybe a total of about 250 billion equivalent to the women's sector and lending at these rates that are below market. In addition, the collateral, which Julia had talked about being such a difficult thing for women, is something we've also looked at, and we've come up with more innovative ways to lend without asking for the full collateral. So we ask for a little less collateral and some innovative types of collateral, and in some cases for women, separate from what we typically would do in the average business place. Beyond the financing, though, I just wanted to add that we've realized that it's not just the financing, it's also ensuring that the women have the financial literacy to run the businesses. So we have a W Academy. So we have a whole team, actually, focused on women in the bank. So we have a W Academy, wherein we have training programs across the country, and we don't just do them in the major states, we do them all across the country and in several communities as well. We do wellness programs because the women have to be well and fit to run the businesses and feed the household, so we have those as well. Health and wellness checks, food as well, where necessary. We have webinars, we have mentoring programs. We also do a competition annually wherein we It's sort of like a pitch-a-thon, wherein you pitch your ideas, you go through a whole competition, and the winners end up with a grant. I think we've given out about $110,000 equivalent in grants to about 50 women to help promote their businesses. In recent times, we're also working with the subnationals, the state governments, to see how we can also lend to women in their communities at lower rates. So there's a whole structure we're working on which would enable us, hopefully, to lend at sub 10% to women in the states who are willing to work with us. So that's also an area that we've tried to be innovative. The final thing I'll talk about is the agri sector, because the agri sector is important to us, but we've realized that most of the players in the sector today in the formal sector today are male. So we've decided that we should focus a bit on that sector as well to provide financing for women, and that's something that's work in progress. Recently, we actually signed off a deal with the European Investment Bank, wherein we got some funding, and this is long-term because also tenor is a problem for financing in Nigeria, and we're able to lend up to 12 years on that financing. And 30% of it is dedicated to women. So I think as a bank, we've done quite a bit in terms of finding innovative ways to finance women. And I think other banks are catching up as well. So once there are quite a significant number of us doing it, we'll be able to feel the impact in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And before we proceed, I'd like to call up another member, Mr. Shubham Charduri, Country Director of the World Bank. He will join us up on stage now and will deliver closing remarks at the end of this session. Mr. Shubham, please join us. Give him a round of applause. Okay, so we've heard about how access to finance is a critical catalyst for women's empowerment and the ways in which Access Bank is ensuring that in the banking and innovative space. We now turn to Your Excellency, who, as we all know, has been an exemplary leader in your space around women's empowerment issues. And you can speak to us, sir, about the transformative link between land ownership and women's economic empowerment, specifically in Abia State. And would you also, sir, explore the visionary role of traditional rulers such as yourself, Excellency, in the way that you navigate the path towards gender-inclusive land rights, unlocking opportunities for women to thrive and contribute to local economies and shape a more equitable future in a way that balances community interests and also brings everyone along?
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. The issue of this gender equality or whatever thing we talk about, coming to right to inheritance of property and so on. Luckily, my former governor, Dr. Kezel, just left here a few minutes ago. And I think it wasn't just a mere coincidence that today is exactly 1 year he signed that bill in Abia State, which legalized the right of women to inheritance of land and property in Abia State. So in Abia State, I don't think anybody has a problem with that, because we, as traditional rulers, we are supposed to be custodians of the culture. But you agree with me, the culture does not operate outside the ambit of the constitution of the land. Because if you take back about this culture, I remember what used to happen in my grandfather's time, my forefather's time. Things very barbaric happened then. But now, they no longer happen, simple because the constitution of the federation has come along and then, prohibited such actions. And as so it is, my view of all this is that these things are very possible if we, when I say we, I mean everybody, both the male child, the female child, the Nigerian citizens, if we all agree that this is the way we want to go, we can do it. After all, what is the difference between a girl child and a boy child? What exactly is the difference? Many of us, we attended the same school, and in certain cases, the female child, some of them excelled even more than the male child. We've been into the same various areas, maybe in working places, and you see the female child doing extremely well. Some of them became executives before the male child, and that doesn't take away anything from us. So let me say something. You asked of my opinion as a traditional ruler and how it is operated in my own area. In my area, female or girl child have the right to own properties. And we've started, since this law was passed, it started taking root. But one thing is that it didn't go as you expect, just to, at once, everybody to imbibe it. There are still certain sections that will be resisting. But it's a gradual something. Like I think the last speaker said, there must be an agreement, an understanding. Maybe you compensate something. The women somebody has got to compensate something for these things. There's got to be a balance where I say, you get this and we get that. After all, it is for the interest of everybody. It's not for the interest of the girl child alone. I tell you, if this empowerment or whatever you call it has to do in a number of ways. You have to also consider, you see that she made a good point when you talk about delaying the childbearing age of the adolescent girls. You go to our communities, you see so many young girls, some having 4 children, 5 children. Ask them, they barely finished even their junior secondary school. They are underage. And then you are burdening them with 4 children. They have no livelihood, no source of livelihood to run it. So there is a very big responsibility for the traditional ruler here. You've got to find out these people. When you talk about giving scholarship, you are giving scholarship to intelligent people. What of these girls that stop schooling somewhere? Scholarship could be extended to skill acquisition. Scholarship could be extended to, trade, anything. So get to know about their need, and then do something. I tell you, like in my community today, we had a scholarship scheme we started some 15 years ago. We started with as little as 500,000. Today, it has gone up to millions of naira. But now, we've started to include some married ladies, those who were married into the community without finishing their schools. So we have to help them. Those who are ready to read, you give them sort of a scholarship. Are you ready to read? Is your husband ready to allow you to go and read? Yes. You go in. The community sponsors you. You did not finish your school side. You want to do some trade, you want to acquire some skill? Yes. We pay for it. There are quite a number of them. So what I'm trying to say here is that there are many ways. It's not only by land issue. After all, if you come to certain areas, like in my own area, in my local government, it's an urbanized area. How much land is in the custody of the traditional rulers these days? Every land is under the government. By the land use decree even, they took away every land from the traditional institution to the authority of the governors. So the traditional ruler can do very little about giving you land. It's the governor that can give land. Even your own ancestral land is under the authority of His Excellency, if you don't know. So what I'm trying to say is, we should not limit this thing, looking at it as power of inheritance as only as it regards to land. It's just an empowerment which you can translate through other means to empower the girl child to be more useful in the society.
Thank you very much. There's so much wisdom in what you shared. I think you started by emphasizing that culture, tradition exists within the context of our Constitution and our laws more broadly. And I think that is such a great perspective to have. You also spoke about the relationship between traditional rulers and governments within states, and also this idea of taking the time to bring people along, and the idea of compromise, that even as we're looking for progress, we need to sort of think about what trade-offs can be made. You mentioned that, obviously there would be some challenges with bringing people along. Would you mind sharing maybe some of the key approaches that you take? Let's say if you're approaching a set of stakeholders that are very critical but are having a bit of difficulty coming into the fold, what are some of the ways in which you broker that buy-in as a traditional ruler?
Come again.
When there are people that don't agree, that don't want to participate, and what are some of the specific approaches? Let's say if the audience is having to do this similar work in their communities, maybe not necessarily as a ruler, but just as a citizen, trying to get people to come together and agree, for example, on an issue around girl-child education or land rights. What are some of the approaches that you would recommend that will help them bring people to the table to agree?
Yeah, I think normally the structure in the traditional institution is such that you have a community or a council where you have to discuss issues. When you talk about these customs and so on, or these norms you talk about that have been existing, this council has been the guidance of these norms and whatever it is. So for you to take any decision about them, you still have, the council still has to come around. When you are going away from the certain norms, like when you say, like I mentioned, try now to empower the girl child, maybe with the community resources or so on, it's something you still put the council together. It has got to be an agreement of the entire council. The entire council. That is the only way you can get it going. And of course, in the council, by empowering some of them, you bring even the ladies into that council. Once you have them, they advocate for the right of the, yes, they are there, they are part of it. So even those outside, when a decision is taken, they will not feel not being part of it. They will know that somebody, their own person or their own gender was there at the point of discussing these policies.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause, please. So at this point, we'll move to Ms. Hannah Brixey. I see you there, Hannah. Okay, great. So we've heard about what's happening in the private sector and the ways in which traditional rulers are facilitating issues around land ownership and other economic empowerment. We'll soon hear from the Honorable Minister of State around some of government's work. But can you share with us how the World Bank is supporting the government of Nigeria in its efforts to implement these types of interventions and how you're helping us bring them to scale?
Illustrated the disadvantages facing women and girls in Nigeria. And let me highlight that these disadvantages start early in lives and intensify, especially in adolescence, with challenges such as early marriage, childbearing, barriers to continuing education and to engaging productively in the economy and society. And adolescence is also the time when mindsets form. That is when boys start to think about relationships with girls and think about masculinity. So that's when also it's so important to involve boys as well as involve girls toward gender equality. Now, a recent World Bank report found that women in the economy, due to these disadvantages, due to constraints in accessing information and inputs from land to financing, that women have much lower earnings than men, even for the same effort. So let's take women farmers. On average, in Nigeria, women farmers earn 30% less than their male counterparts. Women entrepreneurs earn on average 66% less. And women wage workers earn on average 22% less. So just addressing these constraints based on our calculation would increase the Nigerian economy, would expand the economy by 9.3 billion US dollars. So that is 2.3% of Nigeria GDP. In other words, just addressing the gender constraints facing female farmers and business women and employees would benefit everyone. Now, globally, the World Bank is working on multiple fronts to help accelerate progress towards gender equality. We engage towards gender equality around 3 drivers of change. The first is innovation, so evidence-based solution, and I'll give you examples from our Nigeria program. The second is financing, and the third, increasingly, is collective action. So let me tell you more about these. So first, innovation. In many countries, including Nigeria, the World Bank is developing, piloting, and testing and evaluating solutions that may work, and then supporting government to bring the solutions that work to scale. We are also promoting learning from and refining solutions that are initiated locally. Now, Julia discussed the example of the economic inclusion program, combining cash with interventions such as access to information, technical assistance, and economic opportunities, or small entrepreneurship and improvements in livelihoods. Now, this is done as part of social safety nets in Nigeria and also in many other countries, and with very strong positive results when it comes to opportunities for women that bring income to their entire household. There are also other projects such as the World Bank supported Adolescent Growth Initiative for Learning and Empowerment in Nigeria. And this is especially important as it is engaging and supporting and empowering girls in adolescence and addressing multiple constraints that these girls face, and also providing them with the skills that could empower them to be productive in the economy and in the society in the future. Now, the next frontier would be to further empower adolescent girls in schools on issues such as sexual and reproductive health and rights, building awareness, menstrual products and menstrual health and hygiene. So these are also areas where in other countries have been very effective in empowering girls for the future. And the next frontier is also to further engage boys in schools and also in communities on issues such as, to stay against gender-based violence or for to respect girls and women, and to promote gender equality as human right and also as essential for strong communities and families. Now, the second driver of change is financing, and that involves securing and allocating resources effectively toward gender equality. And this must be done through the public sector and also can be done through the private sector. So in Nigeria, the World Bank is working, of course, with partners to boost financing for gender equality outcomes. Also supporting the government to use public finance towards solutions that work. So supporting good integration of gender analysis in public finance policies, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side. And also in the private sector. So, for example, the World Bank is hosting the Multi-Stakeholder Women Entrepreneurship Finance Initiative, which works with Nigeria's financial intermediaries to expand access to capital for women-owned firms. Now, the third driver of change is collective action. And here, based on evidence, we have to realize that gender equality, to make progress toward gender equality, this requires sustained engagement by a wide range of actors, including influencers such as traditional rulers or local religious leaders, because to make progress toward gender equality, it does require also addressing harmful gender norms, or more broadly, shifting social norms to complement policy reforms and shifting mindsets. And there is already one excellent example in the World Bank program in Nigeria, which is the Nigeria for Women project, where the World Bank is supporting the government in coordinating with civil society organizations and the private sector to institutionalize women affinity groups and platforms for women's economic empowerment and to enhance economic opportunities of unbanked women. So these are just a few examples. Personally, I'm truly impressed by the excellent momentum and the excellent collaboration that already has been in place. I'm sure Shubham will share many more insights. But from the global perspective, what I would like to highlight is that some of the examples, some of the programs toward gender equality in Nigeria are really examples of best practice and also an inspiration also that we are sharing with other countries. So let me stop here, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brixey. And I'd love to follow up, if you wouldn't mind, with just an additional question. Knowing that the bank recently, I think last year, launched an investment in care program. Increasingly, especially post-COVID, there's been a lot of emphasis on the unpaid care economy and investments in that and how that can further unlock women's economic empowerment and access to the labor market. In recent years, in the last few years, and there's been increasing data, increasing work on the continent, a lot of which is being led by your team at the bank in the diagnostic lab. So can you share a little bit of some of that and some of the ways in which we can integrate that in the Nigeria context? Is she gone? Is she still with us? Oh, okay. There you are.
Yep. So thank you very much for the question. So from evidence, we see that on average, women bear the burden of care that is on 3 to 4 times higher compared to men. And of course, this is unpaid care burden, which limits the opportunities that women have to engage in economic work. But what we also see from evidence is that when it comes to quality childcare, that the participation in quality childcare is beneficial also for children. That when children in early age, in preschool age, participate in quality childcare, their learning outcomes improve. And in the long term, their human capital development outcomes improve. So investing in childcare is a very productive investment. It enables women to spend more time in economic activities, in paid work. It promotes human capital accumulation, and it also creates jobs, good quality jobs. And importantly, as this is a service with jobs, sometimes supported through the public sector, especially to enable also poor households to benefit from childcare and more broadly care services, but sometimes supported also in the private sector as it is beneficial for companies to invest in childcare. We see from, for example, evidence in Indonesia that when women or more broadly families have access to childcare services, that companies benefit and the productivity increases by 10%. So there is a clear correlation also between the ability of employees to rely on childcare services and their productivity at work. And of course, this also then translates into tax revenues for the government. So the World Bank is supporting through this Invest in Childcare initiative, is supporting countries to test and pilot solutions that could work, how to expand access to affordable childcare, and also how to ensure quality of childcare. And with the Invest in Childcare initiative, there are opportunities to test different approaches, evaluate what works, and then work with governments to bring those solutions that work to scale.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause, please. So I've just been informed that unfortunately, due to another high-level engagement, the Honorable Minister Onyeji Ocha, Minister of State for Labor and Employment, is not going to be joining us. So at this point, we will move into a very brief Q&A session. We're mindful of time, and so we'll take one or two questions from the audience. I believe there are colleagues walking in the audience. Do we have by a show of hands, do we have any questions? Okay, we have a gentleman right here. So we have, okay, and another gentleman in white here. I'm being told about time. We do have a lady, only two. So for gender balance, I'm sorry, we'll go with this lady right here in the third row.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kajo Enogbadun. When His Excellency was talking, he makes mention of scholarship, and that was where my question is coming from. When you look at the scholarship given in the whole world, they look at the best, and we are here to talk about inclusion and for the less privileged and the vulnerable one. So those that did not have that higher IQ to be the best, like the others that were giving scholarship, what are they doing for those ones that are vulnerable and less privileged and they cannot perform like the other ones? Thank you.
You raise your hand, yeah? You raised your hand?
Yes, I did. Okay. Good evening to the panelists and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Angela Olofo Adeoye. My question is, studies have shown that women, when given access to financial credit, have the ability to pay back. So my question to the World Bank is that, what is the World Bank doing to build on the social credibility of women in terms of giving out finances for empowerment? Because we know that the commercial banks have a high rate of asking for high collateral that these women don't have because they are highly impoverished. So is there anything the World Bank is doing to build on the social capital of these women in terms of making finance accessible to them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Royal Highness, would you like to take the first question on scholarships, or would anybody else like to take it? You can. Yes, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I think the first question about the scholarship, I think that was directed to me. Gentlemen, look at it. Scholarship, like you said, rightly said, is meant for the intelligent people with very high IQ. You give them scholarship to go and do something. But that does not mean that you neglect those who don't have that IQ, that is equivalent IQ. Those are still your citizens. They are still people. You've got to find a way to empower them. Even if it means going to the same scholarship fund, use it. They may want to learn trade. They may want to do something, acquire some skill. It depends on the interpretation you are giving the scholarship. But for me, at that level, the scholarship is spread out. You want to use it for academics, you can use it for your skill acquisition. Everything is just the same thing. The whole thing is training and empowering the girl child. That's the way we look at it.
Thank you. And I believe the second question was directed at Ms. Brixey from the World Bank around what the bank is doing for women in the finances.
For this question, in fact, the World Bank Group is doing truly a lot to support access to financing for women. A few examples from the World Bank side. There has been support in a number of countries to financial sector reforms so as to improve regulations. but also to provide more training to address bias, often unconscious bias when it comes to employees of commercial banks and their approach to women entrepreneurs. So there is one bucket of operations. The second bucket of operations is more kind of working with women, supporting savings groups, and supporting kind of building the social capital at the community level that provides women with opportunities to start, to have access to small, it's often microcredit, but this way also build their credibility, and with support, with technical assistance, with mentoring and coaching, then be able to access financing also through commercial banks. But let me give you one example that is now very recent, and that is many commercial banks in many countries do not collect sex disaggregated data on their portfolio. So there is actually little information on the specific proportions of women entrepreneurs and male entrepreneurs in the portfolio of financial institutions. So it makes more difficult for financial institutions also to be held accountable for their decisions. So the World Bank Group recently launched a new initiative through the WeFi partnership, which is called We Finance. So it's a new initiative that supports commercial banks to collect sex disaggregated data and to make this data available. And this can create a bit of a peer pressure on commercial banks to provide more of a balanced access to credit by women entrepreneurs as well as men entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. And with that, we come to the close of this panel. And I'd like to really thank our esteemed panelists. We've heard across community engagement, the private sector, and also in terms of the World Bank support, the ways in which innovation is happening. And for me, so much has resonated, but I think Ms. Brixey's very last example is a good one, because it demonstrates that innovation doesn't have to be this complicated thing. It can be as simple as helping commercial banks disaggregate their data. So when we're looking at women's empowerment, innovation is even just ensuring that the fundamentals around having the core data that we need is being done. It also means that we leverage traditional rulers, such as His Royal Highness, who are working diligently in their communities to bring those rights to women and to girls and to broker trust. It's also about the ways in which banks are leading the charge, such as Access Bank, to address issues around collateral for women owners. So again, please let's have a round of applause for our panel.